Does your nausea feel better after taking a hot shower? It's literally my favorite question to ask patients who come in saying that they vomit all the time and they also happen to use marijuana, because maybe it's like one of those questions that seems so left field, but is so relevant. Obviously, it's 420 today, so we're talking about 420 and the gut. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Austin Chang. I'm a gastroenterologist, so I see some of these things sometimes. Today, I'm gonna be answering some common questions about marijuana, cannabis, 420, whatever you wanna call it, and the gut. Disclaimer, I do not partake in marijuana, and therefore, this that you're seeing, I don't know if you can see, this is not a result of marijuana. If you saw my previous video, this is because of LASIK surgery. You can go watch it. It has nothing to do with marijuana, so you can stop staring at my eyeball for the rest of the video. So the first thing to understand is why marijuana has an effect on the human body, because obviously it does. Our body has this endocannabinoid system, which basically is a fancy way of saying that in different parts of our body, different cells have receptors for components within marijuana that it responds to. So some cells in our body have a CB1 receptor, whereas others have a CB2, not that CB2. And again, these receptors are present on different kinds of cells, on all the different digestive organs that we have, and depending on the organ, there may be different amounts of these receptors. Take the entire digestive system and the gut, for instance. We're gonna see different effects of marijuana on the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the colon, the liver, the pancreas. There's so many different targets. So depending on where the receptors are, it could impact secretion, inflammation, the immune system, motility, pain perception, all these different things. And keep in mind that marijuana consists of many different compounds. The two most popular are THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, and CBD, cannabidiol. And you know, for the most part, we just don't know enough about marijuana's effect on the body and how it works. There are a lot of cellular-based studies, there are a lot of animal studies, but there still aren't enough human studies to really figure out what's going on. You'll also see that for literally any given organ, you'll find evidence that shows that marijuana helps with certain conditions and makes certain things worse. Take the esophagus, for instance. Some studies show that it helps out with acid reflux, and other studies show that it worsens acid reflux. Same thing with the stomach. Some studies show that it slows down the stomach. Others show that it actually moves things along for the stomach. And take obesity, for instance. Some studies show that it can help people lose weight, but at the same time, we all know that marijuana can cause the munchies and enhance the appetite. So we may walk away from all of this with more questions than answers. So the first question I often get is, can it be used to help out with nausea and vomiting? And certainly some patients find some benefit with marijuana to help out with their nausea and vomiting. And there actually are THC-based products that have been approved by the FDA for use in patients who suffer from nausea and vomiting related to chemotherapy. But on the other hand, we also know that some people might experience greening out, where they become very nauseated from having too much marijuana at one time. Keep in mind that greening out is actually different from a whole another condition called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, or CHS. This syndrome sometimes happens in people who are using marijuana daily, for instance, and end up developing this vomiting over and over again that seems to not improve. But one question that we ask is whether or not hot showers help it out. And some people actually find that hot showers is where they find relief. And it's one of those things that we learn in med school that triggers us to think, oh, it could be cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. So in some cases, it can help out with nausea and vomiting. In other cases, it might make it worse. It might cause a whole different syndrome of cyclical vomiting. Kind of along the same lines is whether or not marijuana can improve appetite. And I think we all know the answer to that is that yes, it can cause the munchies, it can potentially improve appetite. And like I said, not everyone experiences the same effect, but again, there are THC-based products that have been approved by the FDA for use in age-related anorexia, not the eating disorder type anorexia nervosa that we often think of, but anorexia in general as a technical term that means that people don't have an appetite or have no desire to eat. Can it be used to treat inflammatory bowel disease? There are definitely studies that show that patients experience an improvement in their symptoms, but there's not much objective evidence that it really helps out. And that might not mean that it doesn't improve pain, for instance, but they're not seeing necessarily improvements in inflammation or other things like that. So basically, we don't know if it's treating the symptoms or if it's actually treating the underlying disease. And that said, and I'm not an inflammatory bowel disease doctor, but Any way to get patients on a lower dose of steroids or a lower dose of narcotic pain medication tends to be something that is welcomed. And there may be different effects based on what kind of inflammatory bowel disease you have, whether it's Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. Either way, marijuana should not be a substitute for existing treatment. You have to keep in mind that sometimes some of these diseases have actual structural problems that can't be treated with marijuana. You know, if there's scar tissue somewhere that results because of the inflammation, marijuana is not going to fix that. So it all comes back to what is causing the pain, what is causing the symptoms that the patient is experiencing. So can it be used to treat pain? I think a lot of people have found benefit in using marijuana to treat pain. And I think it depends, because not all pain is created equal. Again, if pain is a result of something that is structural, marijuana might not adequately address it because it's not addressing the underlying issue. Simply treating the pain and allowing the underlying issue to potentially get worse ultimately might not be the best solution. But in other situations, marijuana might be a great option to kind of reduce patients' dependence on narcotics, for instance, given everything that we know about the risks of opioids out there. So basically, at the end of all of this, it's not that cut and dry. It's not all black or white, good or bad. But sometimes you have to weigh the risks, just like everything else in medicine. For instance, we can't ignore potential effects that marijuana has on other organs outside of the gut, so we have to keep that in mind. We also don't know if this universally applies to THC, CBD, the whole plant. The other thing is marijuana that is well vetted is probably different than marijuana that is bought on the black market. And not to get too political, but this is where politics and public health can often intersect. Legalizing marijuana may have an effect on what's available in the black market, so I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions. And again, a lot of what we know is based on studies in animals, in cells, not necessarily in humans, so it's going to take some time before we understand better what conditions we can use marijuana to treat, how to target it more specifically, and I'm sure that as time goes on and technology improves, we can isolate what's in marijuana to better treat those specific conditions, so we may see this whole landscape evolve in the next few years. Clearly, it's a very hot topic. I think that it's really promising. So anyway, I hope you found this video informative. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you so choose, if you want to learn more about gut health here on my channel. You can also follow me on virtually all other social media platforms if you like. And until the next video, please stay safe, especially this 420, and I will see you in my next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.